What it do, KTTV? This is KT, and I'm coming at you live with another episode of the Daily K Podcast. And on today's episode, we have Mr. Eugene Howard from the Brazoria County NAACP. How you doing today, Mr. Howard?
Man, I'm blessed and highly favored. Dope on this Blackout Tuesday.
Yes, sir. That's why I wanted to say this is a special edition today as we do the blackout. And as I said in the what better way to celebrate this day by talking to the NAACP, who's all about the advancement of our people.
Amen.
Before we get into it, man, how have you been doing during the pandemic and staying safe?
To be totally honest with you, God has been good to me in that regard. If no one in my immediate family, or myself, has tested positive for the virus. Now I will admit though, I got really sick back in January, and like with every symptom that COVID it has right now. I mean, I couldn't breathe. It was everything. It kind of makes me think on another point that this virus has been here a lot longer than they've been publicizing. So now that's just my own personal concern. But as far as testing positive, none of us have tested positive. And so we've just been trying to be safe by maintaining the CDC guidelines. And it's kind of crazy to even say the White House guidelines when you got the commander in chief being an idiot. But, trying to, socially distance. If you can't socially distance, wear PPE, and just put yourself in a wise predicament, right? Don't go to a rally that people aren't going to be participating in safe practices. For instance, like I participated in quite a few George Floyd protests and in agreement with the movement of Black Lives Matter in those protests. But one thing I can say about our people that I was really pleased and proud of, that majority of us had on PPE, because again, I love to let our community know we are most affected by this virus. It takes us out versus making other people sick, right? So we have to be due diligence. Is just something else that the African American community has to fight in this supposedly land of the free. Like it's another enemy. So we have to take that approach, and we can't have the approach of other leaders who don't care about us. I really believe they want most of us to die off to try to get the numbers back to where they used to be. If you just want to be real, why do you think they put all the plants and all the pollution and all the trash in our community? You go to River Oaks, what waste plant is in River Oaks for out here in the greater Houston area? Or if you go to different places like, where the Caucasian congregates, it's a lot more pleasant than where African Americans have to reside.
Before we go, could you give a little bit of your background and why this work is so important to you?
A little bit about me. I'm an educator, and history is my subject. So I've always had for instance, I fell in love with history in seventh grade when they in Texas. I'm from Texas, of course. So we start teaching us Texas history in middle school. So like hearing about Davy Crockett, and I thought it was dope that 100 men had fought off this big army, and I'm like, oh man, these some like, and then the raccoon hat, and it was just like something that was different from my world, right? Like ain't none of my uncles and nobody wore no raccoon hats and shots. So it was just a curiosity, and that built into my affinity and wanted to know about our country and our countrymen, right? I want to say back in about 2015, I was getting ready for church, and NAACP came across the screen. Just like it was a black screen, then it was like NAACP in white. Thought that was pretty dope. It was their Image Awards promotion for that year. So I went to the restroom, washed my hands, came out, and as soon as I walked out the restroom, the exact same commercial was on doing NAACP. And I'm a very faith-based man, and I believe God gives you signs and signals to what you're supposed to be doing. So that made me ask my wife. I was like, babe, what's up with this NAACP? I feel like deja vu is something in my spirit about it. I take it inspiration from gentlemen like Jack Kennedy and Bobby Kennedy and Dr. Martin Luther King and Barack and other great leaders that have had to navigate through troubled times. But if it wasn't for them, we might not be as far progressive as we are. And I said, I am no longer going to sit by and just want to coach football and go about my daily life. I got to do something for my kids and my babies and the next generation, because Dr. King said, you're not going to remember your enemies' voices. You're going to remember the friends that were silent during your time of trouble. And again, Dr. King also said the measure of a man is not where he stands when it's comfortable, but where he stands through adversity and controversy. So at this time, I was like, bump all that. I'm a young man. It's a young man's game, and we look. I was born in the '80s. I can legitimately say my generation was the first truly born generation of African Americans in this country. Which means when I was born, I had every right. I could vote. I could do this. But guess what? 15 years before I was born, we didn't have that. People had to die. My uncle died in Louisiana protesting, fighting this fight. So, like, when I start talking to my grandpa about why he had to leave Louisiana and move to California, and when you start realizing the how close these situations are to you and not how far away, because you're looking in history books and it make you feel like it happened 200 years ago. No, we're actually living history right now. Like, we've only been technically free since 68. My mom was born in 63. So that should tell you where we are as a country. And you can't say that y'all got to get over 381 years of apartheid, slavery, Jim Crow, and unequal treatment and think because we've made some strides in the last 20 to 60 years that it's all good. No, it don't work like that. It don't work like that. So I mean, I'm sorry, that's probably too much, but but that's why I'm so passionate about what I'm doing, and why the NAACP, the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, the 111 years that this organization has been fighting. I believe it'll be fighting another 100. Hopefully, we won't be having to fight this fight though.
Yes, yeah, that's what we hoping for. And that brings me up to the next question. Racism is not getting worse. It's simply being filmed. So now you're able to see this. With this movement here, it seems to have a different feel to it. As far as maybe we'll get a little bit more done. So I would say if you feel it's a different feel, why do you think that's happening?
I think it's a lot of things that have contributed to the different feel, because for the first time, it kind of goes back to what I was saying about the 80s babies and maybe some of the 70s babies, but most definitely the 80s babies. Like, I grew up with my best friend as an adolescent, a white boy named Eric. It's my boy. Like, it was like, so growing up in that world, we were intertwined, right? So now as an adult, he sees the same thing I'm seeing. Like, yo, this dude don't need to be killed in the street. I'm not like, we're not what we used to be. And I think it's a lot more allies willing to speak up and speak out. This is the most accepting generation in the history of this country, maybe even the world. And so when you have people looking at the humanity of people, right? And when you have an ignorant idiot in the Oval Office perpetuating racism and bigotry, it's really easy to say, God damn, I don't want to be on that side of history. Look what that's about. And I think more people are concerned now about, because we do have cancel culture. Like, people ain't putting up with what used to be, and that's the difference now. And to go piggyback off of that also, like Will Smith and others have said, racism ain't, like, I think you just said it, racism ain't going nowhere. It's just being filmed now. So now you can't deny it. Now when you see Rashard Brooks get shot running away in a Wendy's drive through, when you see Ahmaud Arbery chased down for 5 minutes, when the New York Times gave the timeline of the last 5 minutes of that beautiful soul's life, right? How he was panicked for his life, but just looking at a construction building, people can understand that they didn't grow up thinking Dixiecrat is where it's at. White people is where it's at. They grew up wanting to be indulged in the black culture. White people growing up looking at Michael Jordan, looking at Michael Irvin, Emmitt Smith, the Dion's, and the others that they aspire to be. And you see, you got people like Jason Williams from my generation that watch boys hooping growing up. You know what I'm saying? So it was like it's different because society is different. They, Dr. King said, and Reverend Young said in 1968, before his unfortunate assassination, that we have been living in the bondage of separate but equal, but now we're getting ready to walk into the promised land of creative integration. But anybody that has read their Bible knows what happened with the children of Israel when they got to the promised land. They still had to kill giants. The land was there, but there were still entities that they had to take out. And guess what? They were like crickets compared to those giants. So that is the same approach that we as black people must take, even though we are in the promised land of creative integration, that we got to slay these giants of systematic racism, bigotry, all of those things that we know don't belong. We got to go in there and take them out.
Yeah, and as we look at the movement and the work that needs to happen next, I know you're talking about what we're doing here, but how has the NAACP responded on a national level regarding these type of situations?
Well, we made it very clear, and I don't want to just give the empty words because that's something as a young president. I'm the youngest president in the state, and I was the youngest in the country until a little while ago. But I was letting them know that, hashtags are great, but we got to put that action, boss. We got to be about that action. So, we have the hashtag We Are Done Dying, but on top of it, We Are Done Dying, we are going to protest. We've launched a campaign in regards to rooting out racism. We just had a big virtual rally where we had Emmitt Smith, we had T.D. Jakes, we had Michelle Obama. We had a bunch of people come and speak about why the importance of voting. I know people don't want to hear that, but that's where we gonna make the change. And I know people have lost faith in that system, but we gotta vote because the more that we just say, oh, it don't matter, we play into their hands. Again, the Republican Party, and this not even a political statement, this is just a fact. I don't care if you're Republican or Democrat, but the conservative Republican Party has installed 250 judges to the federal bench. Why is that important, people? Because federal judges are in office until they die. All the gains that we've made with the NAACP and with our people have been in the courts, y'all. We won the Supreme Court cases, Roe versus Wade, Brown versus Board of Education. Those were court cases that changed the law. But if you start putting people in place that are impartial or want to go back to where they used to be, it'd be apartheid, it'd be South Africa 2.0, to where we have the numbers, but a certain few people have all the power. And again, 2043 is real, people. If you don't know, 2043 is the first time in this nation's history where the Caucasian will be the minority for the first time ever. And they know that as well because for years they've been able just to push their agenda by sheer numbers. But white folks stop having kids for whatever reason, and God has blessed us, brown and black and other babies, to be flourish and be multiply, excuse me. So that way the numbers are changing. And Mitch McConnell has already said it. I mean, just go look at what the Republican leadership is saying. We're not going to bring certain bills to the thing. We're not going to look at safe polling locations. The NAACP on state level sued the governor and won to make sure we have safe polling locations. So we are very active in not only what we're doing about dying. We're looking into, again, changing laws, changing policies. You have the can't wait. Like we are pushing real reform of the way we think about policing. Now, a lot of people have said defund the police. The NAACP has not made a defund the police statement. We do believe, though, funds can be allocated differently socially. Like invest in programs, invest in rehabilitation versus incarceration. Like a lot of these are addiction issues, right? Just like so people can understand if you was like, I'm an 80s baby, and unfortunately the 80s destroyed my family and our culture. My daddy wasn't there. So guess what? For crack cocaine, the powder substance, you get a slap on the wrist. But when you got the liquid coke, you getting 25 or under. It's the same thing, the same drug. The difference is the method of intake. When the white boys on Wall Street can put it in their hands, but for us brothers and sisters who had to shoot it through the needle, you wanted to throw them under the jail, which goes back to mass incarceration, where this country has had an issue with trying to get free labor. Like this, I'm sorry, but we built this one from the jump. We built it for free. For free. You had 155 years of free labor and then another 100 of apartheid and Jim Crow. So, like, at some point, that check is going to come due. Now, I know Dr. King said we coming to get our check, and that's when they killed him. But guess what? You can't kill us all, sirs. And we coming to get our checks.
So that brings me up. How do we turn the page as far as moving forward as and working with our allies to bring about that equality.
What we have to do, we have to, like Dr. King, and I'm gonna use them gentlemen, and Reverend Young and the LCSC, that movement back in the Southern Christian Leadership Conference. You have to disarm your adversary with humility and humbleness. And I know that's so hard sometimes for us black people to understand, and want to do, like, regardless if we understand it or not. But we have to change the narrative. Like, for instance, this whole Kaepernick thing was about police brutality, but others made the narrative about disrespecting the flag and the military. What we have to do is stay on message, right? What we have to do is make sure that we're talking about this is we're really fighting for the soul of America. Where are we going to be morally? We can't be the standard bearers of freedom and light when we have apartheid and oppression here in our very own homes. Like, think about this for a second. The way we turn the page is addressing the issues we had before and rectifying them, right? Stop trying to put a band-aid and go ahead and have the surgery and clean it up. We've had soldiers come home lynched in their uniforms from World War II, World War One, blinded and beaten. You know what I'm saying? We had brothers going to go fight in Vietnam for rights they didn't have right here at home. That's why Muhammad Ali said, Viet Cong ain't never called me nigga. That why that statement was so profound, because you want me to go fight your war over here when I can fight and die right here in my country. Like, as a grown man today, I understand so much what Muhammad Ali was saying, the champ was saying at that moment. If I'm gonna die, I can die right here. Like, as a black man, every day I walk outside as an adventure. God forbid, it could be my last day. Depends on how you feel, not nothing that I did. So we have to address those issues and stay on message. We have to let them know that this place, we got, Dr. King said it, we gonna hold America to true to what she said on paper, that all men are created equal, endowed by certain rights by their creator, with the right and the ability to pursue life, liberty, and happiness. And that's what we gotta make sure this brochure turns into the factual document the fathers, even though they were very flawed in themselves, intended it to be.
Yes, sir. That's it, man. I sure appreciate that today, man. And now, if
Yes, sir.
some
Yes, sir.
if someone wants to know more about how to get in contact with, be a part of the NAACP, or get in contact with you, how do they go about that information, getting that information?
Great. Well, again, my name is Eugene Howard. You can look me up on my on Facebook as Eugene Howard. But my Twitter and my Instagram handle is Visionary Howard. Also, I will give the branch telephone number, which is 832-736-2831. And also, my email is visionaryhoward@gmail.com. And again, man, I'm sorry I couldn't be. I try to be a pretty boy every now and then. I couldn't do it today, given the circumstances. But I wanted to make sure this was important for our people to understand that over George Floyd is buried in Missouri County. We can't let his death go in vain.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We cannot. We will not.
Amen. We can't stop, won't stop.
Yes, sir. Well, that'll do it for us, man.
Well, thank you so much, sir. I appreciate you.
This is KT for KTTV signing out. 100.